Hi guys, how are you doing? This is B from Tech Century, and you might have seen that I just unboxed the OnePlus One 2 days ago, and I planned on doing a lot of coverage on this phone, but today I'm going to tell you why I decided to sell my OnePlus One and why you might want to reconsider purchasing one. So let's get started after the intro. So I actually have a little cheat sheet right here with aspects that I want to go over in this video, and just to explain to you guys why I decided to basically sell the OnePlus One as soon as I could. And this was actually like half an hour ago, so I already have the money in my pocket. The OnePlus One is gone. Now I did record a little bit of footage to show you my points in this video, and I just hope that this might give you some kind of new perspective on the OnePlus One, and maybe you want to reconsider your decision to buy one once you actually get the chance and once you get an invite, because there are a couple of aspects that I think have fallen short in the past that you need to consider before actually buying the phone. Now, first off, one of the reasons why I decided to sell the OnePlus One was the sheer size of the phone itself. Now, it has a 5.5-inch display, and from the phones that I've used in the past, I can definitely say the bigger the better, but there is some kind of limit. So in the past, I've owned the Galaxy S4, I've owned the HTC One M7 actually twice. So this has a 4.7-inch screen plus the boom sound speakers on top and bottom, so it's a pretty big phone. And now also another 5.5-inch phone is on the market, the LG G3. But while the LG G3 is actually still a device that a lot of people can handle, or where it's comfortable to handle the phone, I should rather say, the OnePlus One is a different story, despite the fact that it's also 5.5 inches in terms of screen. And the basic difference is there's the LG G3 has basically the smallest bezels that you can find on any phone, and that it only has on-screen buttons. So these facts actually take away from the hardware size, and you basically just have all screen and just minimal bezel around the phone. So even though it has a huge screen, the hardware itself isn't too huge. Now with the OnePlus One, I have to say it's a big phone, because you have the 5.5-inch display plus pretty big bezels, and you also have the optional capacitive buttons below the display. So it's a really big phone, and especially some of the features that are implemented here in CyanogenMod are difficult to access. For example, the notification panel. It's kind of like on a tablet, because if you swipe down on the right side, you actually just bring up the quick settings. If you swipe down on the left side, or from the top left, then you actually get to your notifications, and that's a pretty big stretch with your thumb. So you might want to reconsider whether this phone is just not too huge for you. If you don't mind using your phone with two hands, no issue at all. But even for an average sized hand, which I think I have, or maybe it's a little bit above average, it's quite difficult to actually handle the phone one-handed. And even though the LG G2 also has a pretty big display, it was no comparison. And the LG G2, the HTC One are just way more comfortable in terms of size of the hardware than the OnePlus One. Another aspect of the hardware that I just didn't like at all were the capacitive buttons. Now don't get me wrong, I like that you have the option to actually enable the capacitive buttons and also on-screen buttons, or either or, not both at the same time of course. But the backlight is just so dark that basically you feel like you have a defective unit, and that was the first impression that I had, and I read from a lot of people that they had the same impression. So it's unbelievable how dark they are. But in addition to this very dark backlight, there is no print on the capacitive button. So what I mean by that is that, for example, here on the HTC One, even if the backlight is turned off, you know where the capacitive buttons are, because they have a white label basically on them. That's not the case on the OnePlus One. I can understand why they didn't do it. Probably that has to do with the fact that if you use on-screen buttons, you really don't want to have the capacitive ones below that, or at least not visible. But still, for me, that's a big downfall, because the backlight is just not bright enough, and there's no option to actually enable a brighter backlight. And I don't think that this will be fixed anytime soon. And so I think if you really want to use the capacitive buttons, for example, to have more screen real estate in your apps, or also playing back videos, because the backlight is just so dark, basically you just have to get used to where the position is and then do it without looking. So maybe after 1 or 2 weeks, you know exactly where the position is and you don't need a backlight at all. But at least from the first impressions, it's pretty horrible. Now, the second issue that I actually have with the OnePlus One is actually not really hardware related, because the hardware is very nice, the build quality is excellent, the design is excellent, at least in my opinion. And of course the tech specs are as well, no doubt about that, with the Snapdragon 801, the 13 megapixel camera and the 3 gigs of RAM, and also of course the 64 gigs of storage. But that's just the service. And one thing to consider is that, for example, with the LG G2, actually like on the first day that I got it, I know it's pretty embarrassing, but I did drop it out of my pocket and the screen was shattered. I didn't have a case by then and it just completely shattered. And actually I talked to LG and they want to have like 300 bucks to replace the screen. But I could just go on eBay, find an authorized service provider, and they replace the display for 150 bucks. Now, where's my point in that? Well, the problem is that the OnePlus One is a new smartphone from a new company, so it's basically impossible to find like authorized repair shops that can just easily replace your display. So basically, if you have a defective display, if you drop the phone, you're just stuck on the service that OnePlus can provide you. And you might have read that also in the forums. They're pretty slow at responding to RMA requests. And also it can definitely take a while to get repaired, because you probably have to send it to China. And in some cases you actually even have to pay the shipping there, which can be quite expensive if you use a courier. So that's definitely an issue that you might want to consider, because basically from the first minute that I got the phone, I was like, I can't drop this, because if I drop this, I'm screwed. I can't just go to a local repair shop. I can't just go on eBay to find a repair shop. You basically are stuck and you have to rely on OnePlus. And especially because they are a startup, especially because they are a new company, they're really lacking in terms of service and also just the ability to reply to all the emails that they get. So I certainly wouldn't want to drop the phone or just damage it in any way. And that's just not a good feeling to have, because with any other phone, as I mentioned, even if you have like an HTC One, first off, you can just contact the company and they will probably have a repair shop in the country that you live in. Or you could just go on eBay and find an authorized repair shop. Or for example, if you have an iPhone, you basically just go into an Apple store and get it replaced straight away. And so that's definitely a major gripe that I have with the OnePlus One. And certainly for me at least, a reason why I don't want to have the phone right now, because the risk is just too high. And of course, a really nice phone like that, you don't want to like bury in like an OtterBox case that's like 3 centimeters thick. At least I don't want to do that. So that's certainly something to consider before buying the OnePlus One. Next up is value, and while this seems to be a very obvious point where you could say, well, the OnePlus One is an excellent value at $299, you have amazing specs that can compete with other flagships like the Galaxy S5, the HTC One M8, or even the LG G3, except for the display, of course. Yes, you are right, but it always depends on what situation you're in. So just to give you an idea, currently I have the HTC One M7. And even though this phone is over a year old, it already has a full HD display. It has a Snapdragon 600 processor that's plenty fast enough, especially with Sense. It has the amazing boom sound speakers. I don't want to talk about the camera, it's not that great, that's no secret at all. But anyways, my point is that there's basically not a big difference in terms of hardware when it comes to performance, because even though the Snapdragon 801 is a beast, the Snapdragon 600 or Snapdragon 800, for example, in the LG G2, they aren't a slouch either, and basically they can handle everything that you throw at them. And so you just have to think about whether it's really an improvement for you. Now for me, I just look at this like this. I do the same things on all my phones. I use the same few apps, and to be honest, none of them are really hardware intense. I watch a lot of YouTube videos, but that can even do like a Moto G that's 150 bucks. Or also just use news apps and such, and you really don't need beastly hardware for that. And especially considering what you do, maybe another phone is an even better value, like for me the HTC One. Yes, the camera sucks, but I watch a lot of video on there, and for that the boom sound speakers are just absolutely incredible. And that's also why it's difficult to then go back, for example, to the OnePlus One, which has good speakers but certainly can compete in this department. And so value for me is also a problem, because yes, it's only 300 bucks, but then you actually have to add shipping, which they don't tell you before. And with express shipping, you're then at like $322 or 322 euros. And then you have to add some credit card fees, and you're basically at 330 or 340. And then you just have to consider what your current smartphone is worth. So for me, I could sell this HTC One M7 probably for around 230 or 220 euros, at least here in Germany currently. And that means that the OnePlus One is 100 euro to 130 euros more expensive than the HTC One. And honestly, I couldn't find any reason to spend this additional money on the OnePlus One, because everything that the OnePlus One can do, this HTC One M7 can do. And so I just didn't see a reason to spend this extra money, even though of course the OnePlus One is a fantastic value. If you don't have a smartphone right now, maybe you broke yours, or maybe you just have a regular phone, I don't know, from like 10 years ago, then of course this is a fantastic value if you buy your first smartphone, or again if your other one is defective. But otherwise, if you have something like an HTC One, LG G2, there's basically nothing that the OnePlus One can do so much better, and you don't really feel the performance difference. Now last but certainly not least, I want to get to the most important point where I decided to sell the OnePlus One as soon as I could, and that's the yellow band or yellow tint or yellow color issue on the screen. Now, if you followed the OnePlus One and if you are in the forums, then you might have seen that a lot of people are complaining that the screen isn't completely white. So if you, for example, look at a white picture, or maybe you have a white wallpaper, or if you go into, for example, like a news app that has a white background, then you see that the display is pure white on the top, and the further you get down to the bottom, it looks absolutely yellowish. So it basically looks like somebody pissed on the display, to be honest. Sorry for saying it like that, but that's just the way it is. And this is something that a lot of users are really complaining about, and I have to say it really bothers me as well. Now, yes, it's true you can see this, for example, if you have a colorful background like blue or red. But then again, if you're, for example, in news apps that usually have a white background, you see this and it just looks like a portion of your screen is absolutely dirty, and it just looks weird that everything is white and then, I don't know, like the last 20 or 30% of the display are yellow. So unfortunately, there's also no fix in terms of software. You can, for example, calibrate the display differently. The issue just doesn't go away. And it's also not like brightness dependent, or it doesn't depend on the viewing angles, it's always there. Now, OnePlus in their forums actually replied to this issue, and they said, well, this is not a hardware fault, this is a feature. Well, they kind of said it like that. They basically just said that they had to put the backlight very close to the display, and that's the reason why the display is yellow on some devices. So at least to me, this explanation doesn't really make sense. Some people said that it might be some residue from the glue that they used, and that it might be fixed if you, for example, use an UV lamp. I did try that. I put it in there for like half an hour under an UV lamp. No improvement at all. Then some people said, well, you have to keep the display on maximum brightness for, I don't know, a couple of hours so that the glue can, I don't know, like fade away or whatever. Didn't work for me either, so I don't think that this is something that will be fixed over time by itself. Like I think it happened on some of the iPads a couple of years ago, where it really was residue from the glue, and once the display got a little bit hotter, everything went away and everything was fine. I don't think that this is actually the case here on the OnePlus One. I think it's an issue in terms of the display that they use, because actually there's the same display in the 1080p version of the Oppo Find 7. I'm not quite sure, I think it's the 7 and not the 7a, or the other way around. So the one that has the 1080p display actually has the same issue. So I think it's a display issue, and I don't think that this will be able to be fixed with a software update. And for me, that was really an issue, because also other people in the forums tried to actually get their phone replaced, because they said, I paid 300 euros for it, or $300, and this is an issue that shouldn't be, and you should acknowledge this OnePlus One and you should swap the phone. But they just said, no, every phone is like that, and there basically won't be any swapping. And if you want to have it swapped anyways, you can do that within 14 days, but then you have to pay the shipping back to Hong Kong from your current phone, and then shipping again for your new one. So that's quite expensive. And there we also get to this service issue again that I mentioned before in this video, that they just are very slow to responding to requests, for example, like RMAs, and just complaints overall. And so this basically led to the fact that a lot of people now complained on PayPal and actually requested PayPal to refund them their money, because they feel like they were screwed over by OnePlus. I wouldn't go that far, but for me it's certainly an issue. Now you could definitely say you just spent 300 bucks on a phone that another manufacturer asks 500 or 600 bucks for. I'm absolutely aware of that fact, but at least for me it's just not pleasant to look at, and that was just the biggest reason why I decided to get rid of the OnePlus One as soon as I could. because I honestly don't want to look at a display all the time that's discolored, that looks like somebody peed on, and that just looks dirty. And for me, it's certainly a big issue, and just the biggest reason why I decided to sell it as soon as I could, because I basically was afraid that more and more people get invites and that the value of the phone decreases pretty fast. And so now I actually sold it for the same price that I got it, including shipping and all that stuff. So I didn't make a loss, but I also didn't like rip off anybody and make a big profit. And I'm happy that I sold the phone, that I'm rid of it. And maybe once the phone will be in stores here in Germany, I might pick it up again to see if there's any improvement. If that's not the case, then the OnePlus One is dead for me. But I certainly won't order it from China again. I will only order it, for example, if Amazon carries it, where I know that if it is the same issue again, I can just return it and then within a few days have my money back. Because I don't want to go through all the trouble to send this to China, spend like 30 or 40 bucks on shipping, and then have them tell me, I don't know, that I damaged the phone or anything. So yeah, that's just my story with the OnePlus One. Sorry that I wasn't able to bring you the coverage that I wanted. But again, I was just afraid that it would take too long and that the value of the phone would decrease. And so now I'm just happy that the phone is gone, that I don't have any issues with waiting for a refund from OnePlus or PayPal. And that's basically the end to my OnePlus One story, at least for now. Again, maybe if Amazon carries the phone in the future, I might pick it up again. But right now I'm done with the OnePlus One, and I just hope that some of the reasons that I've mentioned here in the video might also help you reconsider the decision to buy a OnePlus One. Once you get the invite, of course, because I think especially the service aspect is something that you have to be aware of, because dropping the phone can happen to everybody, and having a shattered phone that you can't get repaired easily is certainly a big issue. So anyways, let me know what you think about the OnePlus One and my reasons why I sold it. Maybe you think I'm insane, or do you think that I made the right decision by selling it ASAP? Let me know, and I'm really looking forward to see you in my next video. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you want to subscribe to the channel, make sure to click the annotation next to this video, or also click next or previous to check out another video of ours. Thanks for watching. See you next time.